So back here in the Deep South, where college football scrimmages are going on, Auburn had one. We just played Hugh Freeze, and he was asked about narrowing the quarterback depth chart there from 3 to 2. He said he had his mind made up. So I'll ask you, what do you think his mind was going into scrimmage, and what do you think it is now, if you had to guess?
I think that I personally think that Robby is pushing Payton a little bit. I think the interesting thing about his quote was, and you mentioned it, was the question was kind of about narrowing the pecking order as a whole. And he answered it so quickly that I sort of wonder if he answered that question or if he answered the starter question. I guess he probably did answer the pecking order question. And so he easily could have been talking about who was going to be 2 and who was going to be 3. He could have been saying, I had my mind made up on who was 2 and who was 3, and now I'm not sure. It didn't necessarily have to be, I had my mind made up on 1, 2, and 3. I'm not sure. I think Holden looked pretty good Saturday from what I understand. Robby did some really good things. I think Payton was fine, was okay. I don't think he did anything special. And so I think Robby is a guy that's coming on a little bit, that's passing the ball a little bit better than he did in the spring, and maybe passing the ball a little bit better than people thought. And the Robby's the intriguing one, because the question is, with his ability to run, can he make up enough ground in the passing game to make it where you then add in his running, and it's a legit question. That's the question with Robby. Is there some kind of gap he can close as a passer and decision maker to make you go, okay, he's not maybe where we want him to be, and maybe he's not where Payton Thorne is as a game manager or decision maker, but he's at this point, and then his running ability takes him to that point, and then is that a question, and how does he get into the mix? Holden Geriner's, I think, having a good fall camp and getting better too. I'm just not exactly sure where he fits into the mix, because he is the least mobile of the guys. And so I do wonder about his fit in that system. And so I kind of still think it's Payton, Robby, Holden. But I think the competition has been good enough that I don't think anybody's played poorly. And so I look at it as a good thing that there's a little bit of indecision with Hugh Freeze. I think and nobody turned the ball over Saturday. That's a good thing. And so I think Holden and Robby are getting a little bit better. And so I think the questions about the quarterback room, I think it's more encouraging that there's maybe a little indecision than if everybody was playing poorly. If Payton was playing down to the competition. And I don't think that's happening. I think Payton's playing about where he is, and those other two guys have gotten a little better. And so I think that's what's caused a little bit of indecision in the quarterback room.
Well, we live in a world now where a number 3 quarterback, if they believe they can play, is not going to sit around. They're going to transfer out. And to me, that kind of seemed like the comment, like once he says this is the pecking order, that number 3 guy could bolt. But I guess my question to you is, we don't assume Payton's going to be the number 3 guy. We assume he's going to be 1 right now, but he just transferred in. Robby transferred in last year. Does he have the ability to still transfer once again?
Robby could. From what I understand, Robby will graduate next summer. And so if that's the case, he could go through spring if he wants to. But if, let's just say, Robby wanted to entertain that next year, he could be a summer type transfer. If he stays on track and graduates in the summer, he could be a grad transfer. He just wouldn't be able to do it in the winter and go through a spring with somebody. He can't do it until he graduates. Holden obviously can do whatever he wants. I think you bring up a good point, which is and it's a little bit of maybe psychology in that quote from Hugh Freeze, and I don't know. And that is, if you're Hugh Freeze, you want that competition to go on as long as you can. I mean, the competition doesn't hurt anybody. It makes everybody better. And so if nothing else, Hugh Freeze coming out publicly saying, I don't know, I thought I had it figured out, but now I'm not sure. I got to go back and watch film. The longer he can keep all 3 of those guys engaged, I think not only for transfer, but I think it just helps the competition in that room, and you have a better fall camp. You don't want to just walk in one weekend and turn over the keys to somebody and end the competition. I think the longer it goes on for Hugh, the better.
I watched a couple exhibition games this weekend, and not all the starters were out there on the offensive line, but like my Buccaneers, the Panthers, the Texans. It was like
Swiss cheese offensive line, bad offensive line play. We know Auburn brought in a lot of offensive linemen. What's your intel telling you about them at the scrimmage when it was live look, and did those transfers hold up as well as expected on that O-line?
Yeah, I think they did well. I mean, the running backs, it sounded like, had a really good day. And if the running backs have a good day, then the offensive line is doing their job for the most part. I mean, that was probably the one bright spot. Damari Alston had a couple of big runs. He is coming on as an absolute stud, I think, and a guy that you can count on to be a good running back. You know what you're getting with Jarquez Hunter. And so I think the running backs had a good day and ran the ball pretty well. And so I think that translates into the offensive line playing pretty well. It sounded like things changed about halfway through the scrimmage, and the defense started dominating, whether that was tempo slowed down or the heat got to the offense or whatever it might be. But I think the offensive line's doing a pretty good job. I think the battle is going to be at that guard position. I think the two tackles are set and the center is set. And I think Cam Stutz at right guard is set. I think the battle is at that left guard, whether it's Jeremiah Wright, Tate Johnson, or even Tulsa transfer Jaden Muskrat, who's played some guard and some tackle. He's kind of played everything. I think the battle is at that left guard position and who's going to be there. But I think they've got 7 guys that they feel really good about that I think are starter quality. And then it probably trails off a little bit after that. But I think there's 7 guys that they probably feel like they could put in and would call a starter. But I think they've done pretty well. And when you hear some signs about them running the ball a little bit, that's a good thing. Now, as Hugh Freeze always says, you're talking about an intra-squad scrimmage. Does that mean Auburn's defensive front is not where it needs to be? Or is the defensive front not good enough? And, you don't know those things, but all you can do is go off what you got. And I think the offensive line is gelling pretty good. And having all those guys come in the spring, Gunnar Britton, Avery Jones, Dylan Wade, they were all there during the spring. So I think they're going to be in pretty good shape to start the season with 6 or 7 guys that they think are starters, and then they just gotta gel, and the chemistry's got to be there. But I think they're in a good spot so far.
Justin Hokanson is with us, Auburn Live, part of On3 Sports. He is on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Go follow Hoke on Twitter @_J Hokanson. Would you, simple yes, no here if you want to. Jarquez Hunter, starter game 1 now, yes, you think?
I don't know.
Okay.
No, that was not your choice.
Just because
I didn't allow you, and I don't know.
Yeah,
it was a yes or no.
I object. Yes or no. Permission to treat him as hostile.
Yeah.
That you're getting.
I'll allow it.
I think that, he missed the first couple of days of camp. Not sure why, but could have been maybe some, you're going to work yourself back onto the practice field type stuff. I just have heard that there's the possibility that he misses a game or a couple. I just don't know the answer to that. He could absolutely walk on there and be the starter at UMass, but it wouldn't shock me at all if he misses a game or 2, just as a suspension of some of those things that went on that Hugh Freeze won't talk about. So I think Damari Alston, I know that Damari Alston and those running backs have been told to be prepared like you're going to be the starter. And if you've listened to Hugh Freeze, he has really, really praised Damari Alston and his ability on the field, but his leadership off the field. He's really built him up. So wouldn't shock me at all if Jarquez doesn't start game 1 or doesn't play game 1.
Quarterback's going to be the focus the entire offseason, and how well the quarterbacks play obviously will lead to a lot of success Auburn has or doesn't have. But this defense has got to get better. Last year by Auburn standards, it was awful. 30 points per game they gave up. Steven Sings V, the Liberty transfer linebacker, I'm hearing he's making a lot of waves. Is this a guy that is going to be an impact guy from day 1?
Yeah, he's going to be an impact guy. Jalen McLeod's really the guy at that position who, from talking to people in camp, there's some people that I've talked to that said Jalen McLeod's the best player on the football team. The transfer from Appalachian State. He appears to be the real deal at that jack position, and Steven Sings has been really good too. Those 2 guys have the size, the physicality, the motor. Both those guys are mentioned as high motor guys, which is what you want to hear at that jack position if you're talking about getting after the quarterback. And so, I think Steven Sings is a guy that maybe didn't get as much pub because he was an after spring transfer from Liberty. He's a guy that was originally committed to Virginia Tech, and through circumstances, he ended up at Liberty. But he's a Power 5 type guy, so I think he's going to be a guy to watch. But your overarching point about the defense is right, and I think that all the attention is on the quarterbacks. We understand why receivers, the offense in general, gets a lot of the attention. I think that front 7 is every bit the concern, maybe even more of a concern to me than how that offense is going to look. I think there's a lot of question marks still. Justin Rogers, is he in the kind of shape he needs to be? Is he ready to be an impact guy? How's linebacker going to shake out? I think that front seven has got a lot of question marks. Jalen McLeod and Steven Sings being really good so far is a huge plus, because that's going to be really Auburn's only ability to rush the quarterback in a serious and consistent way. But I think your questions about the defense, mainly that front seven, I think those are legit questions, and I'm not sure we're going to have those answers until they get into SEC play. But I'm not sure that defense is going to be anything more than average this year. But somebody like McLeod or Sings or somebody that could elevate it. If those guys are the real deal, they could help elevate that front seven.
Okay, I was going to ask you, so you may have answered right there. The front seven, that's your biggest concern before SEC play, the thing that has to get better in these first couple of games before you open SEC play. Is it the front seven, or is there another position? Like, do the receivers have to get better? Where's the position that has to get better?
I think front seven, I mean, I think as a whole, I don't know that I would be specific. I think maybe you take the Jack out of it. I think there's some progress there, but I don't know what's happening on the rotation of the defensive line, and linebacker to me is still a mixed bag. So I consider just the front seven as a whole. And receivers is a big question mark. Hugh Freeze was not pleased with the receivers during Saturday's scrimmage. It was the one position, honestly, that you could tell he was frustrated. He said there was too many missed assignments, guys running the wrong routes from what he can tell. And he even used the word loafing, which is a really strong word to use in public about one of your positions. But he used it, and he said that there were times where he thought he wasn't sure if they were loafing or he wasn't sure if they just ran the wrong route, what was going on, where there was instances where the quarterback made the correct read on an RPO, but then the receiver's not where he's supposed to be, and so then things break down. And so I think that receiver position is still very much up in the air. They're dealing with injuries there. Malcolm Johnson Jr., Coy Moore, Javaris Johnson, and Camden Brown have all missed time due to injury. I think Shane Hooks has come on well. But, yeah, I would almost say receiver and defensive front almost have me more worried than the quarterback position. Even though we don't know what's going to happen at quarterback, I think there's options there. Those other two positions need to come on.
I think we flash the lights now when I'm such a homer. So here's my homer moment of the day right here. I think Auburn dodged a bullet. I think that Flory Bidunga guy is. I don't think he's a 5-star guy. I think he's undersized at 6'9" for his position.
How much tape have you watched?
He's only played the game for 4 years. Yeah. I think Auburn dodged a bullet. What do you think?
I do not agree.
Yeah, dodged a bullet on a 5-star.
Yeah, Kansas took him. Auburn dodged a bullet. Yeah.
Listen, I don't pretend to be, any kind of expert. I know the game pretty well, and I think I know talent. But I can tell you that I'm not sure Bruce Pearl has spent more time recruiting a kid personally than Flory Bidunga. So I think that speaks to what. The talent that kid has and what he could have been on that Auburn team. I mean, Auburn, Janai Broom's probably going, he would have come in and started, no question. It's wide open for him, and it was a good roster situation. And I know Auburn put a ton of effort into him for a long time and really thought they were in position. I think it probably came down to Kansas and Auburn. That's what I was being told for the last 2 weeks, was kind of a 50-50 thing on Kansas and Auburn. And so I think they wanted him pretty bad. I think he would have been a good fit because of how he can stretch and play down low or stretch it out. That athletic wing guy, I think he would have been phenomenal.
All right, here's Justin Hokanson, football,
Save the tape.
basketball, done away as all of a sudden Jeff Goodman breaking players down. Go follow Hoke on Twitter @_J Hokanson, AuburnLive.com, part of On3. Hoke, thank you very much for the time. Have a great week, buddy.
You too. See you guys.
All right, man. Take care. Hoke with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.